Welcome in, friends, to episode 22 of the Preferred Experience podcast. Will Barrett, joined by our guest John Cooper today, who many of you know, and many of you who don't know John Cooper, you're about to know. An excellent person. We've been wanting to get with Mr. Cooper for a long time now. We're here on the campus of the Autauga County Technical Center. Did I say Technology Center, right?
Technology.
I'm going to get this right eventually. Autauga County Technology Center, which is one of the best kept secrets in this entire county. And Mr. Cooper is the grease that makes the wheels, that makes the gears turn here. He's a 1985 graduate of Prattville High School, right here on the red clay. He's got 3 degrees from Auburn University, Poli-Science, Forestry, and Early Education from AUM. And now he's gone from 6th grade science teacher at Prattville Intermediate School to being over here at the Autauga County Technology Center, where he runs robotics. And I'm gonna get into all that later. I'll never say it all right, but Mr. Cooper, thank you for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. There are many here at this school that would disagree about me being the grease and probably think of me as more like the sandpaper around here. But I appreciate the kind words.
Well, you have taken this program since you came over here in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And this program has elevated to levels we haven't seen before. Talk a little bit about your journey, because your degrees don't necessarily lead to like, well, how's this guy with a Poli-Science and a Forestry degree teaching engineering? But you do it in a way that is fun, that is educative, that gets these kids onto the next level with excellence. Talk a little about your journey to this point.
Ooh, okay. So I went to AUM, graduated, like you said, in 1985. Had great plans of going to law school. That was the purpose of the political science degree. I went through, took the LSAT, got accepted into Cumberland and Alabama, and then I looked at myself and I was on the 5-year plan. Because, back then, tuition was affordable enough that you could work at Pizza Hut delivering pizzas, which I did for many years, to pay tuition at AUM when I started was $285 a quarter.
Wow. Times have changed.
A lot. And so, worked, paid my way through school. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I was always the best student, because I wasn't. And that's a fact that I'm very open with my students about too. But I just, at the end of 5 years, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't sit in another classroom anymore. I'm just done. And and at that time, I just wanted to be out of Prattville.
Sure.
And I think that's a natural thing for everybody who grows up here, or a lot of people who grow up here who aren't necessarily from here. And despite the fact that I moved here when I was 10, there are those that will still tell you that I'm not from here.
You weren't born in Prattville East.
Yeah, yeah. And so moved to Atlanta for a couple of years. Worked for an insurance company over there in kind of asset management, and realized that Prattville wasn't so bad. Not having to drive 45 minutes to an hour to do anything. I lived 5 miles from my office over there, and some days it would take me 35, 40 minutes to get to work. Never had to get on the interstate, never had to get on the perimeter or anything. And so a couple things happened. I packed it in, moved back home, and my dad worked for the U.S. Forest Service, and he had retired. And at that time, I think he was retired for about 6 months. It was making my mom a little crazy. And so she gave him an option. She gave him 3 choices. She said, you can get a hobby that keeps you away from home for long periods of time. You can get another job, or you can get a divorce. And so he said, I can't afford the divorce or the hobby, so he started a forest consulting business, and I'd always kind of worked a little bit with him, and I enjoyed doing that. And so I said, I'll just go in the family business. Well, Dad made it real clear very early on that if I wasn't a registered forester with a degree, that I was not going to be doing forester work. And so he had me out there planting trees by hand, with a dibble, doing site prep work, doing burning, and pretty quick I realized that I needed to be the guy driving the truck and the pickup truck, and not the guy walking around with 1,000 trees on his back,
right,
and sticking pine trees in the ground. So I went back, got my degree in forestry, did my time, passed my registered forester exam, and we worked together till he retired, and then I kind of went out on my own, and then kind of went to work with a company called Bayou Wood, up until about 2008, 2009. Recession hit, the housing market tanked.
Boy, did it ever.
And so all the paper companies merged, where we used to have IP, Union Camp, multiple outlets to sell wood to. Those kind of went away, and it got to the point where I always knew before, if I went out and did a certain amount of work, produced a certain amount of volume, what my paycheck was going to be. And I got to the point where I couldn't tell you what my paycheck was going to be anymore, and it was time for a career change. So I started taking classes at AUM in education. At that time, I really didn't have any desire to coach, and so I said, where's my best chance of getting a job? There's not many males in elementary education, so that's where I went, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I will say that I learned, even though it was, childhood education, grades K through 6, I learned a lot of the skills. The classroom management skills that I learned are probably one of the most important things that I have in my tool belt now. So anyway, went through. I worked as a long-term sub, I was a aide for special education in a couple of different schools, the intermediate school, Pine Level. Finally, Ms. Landry took a flyer on me and gave me a job. Got hired 2 weeks into school, and I remember that she introduced me to my class, and I taught 5th grade. Gail Greer and I taught 5th grade one year together, and so the way Ms. Landry did it was the last 30 students who were enrolled got pulled out of their classes and put into mine. Mm-hmm. And it was a whole bunch of girls with big old bows in their hair, and they had some of the cutesier teachers, and they walked into the classroom and saw all this, and I mean,
culture shock. What?
There were 15, 16 girls in there, and 10 of them were crying, man. It was like, oh man, what have I gotten myself into? And then we just kind of went from there, and at the end of the year, I was obviously smart enough that I got promoted. So then I started teaching 6th grade, and it was a great school. I mean, Miss Landry, I guess Miss Odom now, is she's a heck of an administrator, and she was more what I was used to in terms of bosses in the real world. She'd tell you what she expected. You'd talk about it and she'd leave you alone. If you were getting results and you were good. If you were doing what you needed to do, you were good. You could teach it however you wanted to teach it, as long as you got the job done. Mm-hmm. And if there was ever a problem, she would, if you had done the right thing, she was one who would back you up. If you had done the right thing. If you had not done the right thing, she would let you know. And she was very blunt about it. But you had that conversation one time, and it was over. You were good, but don't make that same mistake again.
Right.
And I respect that.
I'm still very struck by your first experience as a full-time teacher was making 10 little girls cry at the sight of you.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because then I came up here 3 years later, and they saw me up here like, what are you doing? I was like, you need to take engineering. I'm teaching engineering now. They're like, oh no, Mr. Cooper. I mean, even though, look, I am lifelong friends with some of those young ladies' parents, and I get Christmas cards and little things on Facebook from them, and just to let me know where the kids are, and that means a lot to me. But I won them over, but first few weeks were.
The first impression was not the best one.
No.
What did I do?
I went from anyway.
No,
because I was the only male teacher other than a PE coach in the school, and I would say for 95% of the students that I had in those 3 years, I was the only male classroom teacher they ever had, and that was another reason that I got into education, was to try to help be that male role model that some of these kids don't have.
You're exactly right. We see it in the athletics program all the time. I mean, a lot of these athletes, student athletes, the coach is their father figure.
Oh yeah.
And I imagine it's that way. It's that way in the classroom as well. I mean, they're all cut from the same cloth, a lot of them. And so yeah, that's pretty cool that you're able to fill that role in a lot of ways.
I try. I mean, I grew up in Boy Scouts. One of the things you didn't dig up is I'm an Eagle Scout, and
I had a feeling though.
And so one of the things that taught me was to try to lead through example. And I'm not perfect, and I don't. My students will tell you I'm not perfect. My wife will doggone sure tell you I'm not perfect, but I try, and I try to make sure that I'm prepared, that they're prepared, and that they know everything's not always sunshine and roses. Everything's not always doom and gloom either, but I try to make sure they're prepared for what's coming at them when they leave these walls.
Well, and you've had real world experience through working in insurance companies, working for a forestry company, and having to change careers in mid stride. And now you're in the classroom with that real world experience, and you're able, I think, in a lot of ways to relate to some of these students in a way that a lot of teachers aren't able to.
Yeah, I think that's one really cool thing about here at the Technology Center is most of the teachers in this building didn't start off as teachers. Except, you've got Connie Rader, who teaches the education program over here. She was a kindergarten teacher for 20 years, but who do you want to teach kids how to teach little kids but somebody who's got the experience? But all of us bring experience. In my forestry program, I did have to take some engineering classes. I am by no stretch of the imagination an engineer, but we call it engineering, but this is really a class about learning how to learning how to figure stuff out, and I think it fills a niche that your book learning can get in the way of your education sometimes.
Yes,
it's not all, and that's it comes from the speech I give my kids the first day of class. Is you've all had classes where teachers open up your head, take a big old pitcher full of facts, pour it into your head, and then tell you to just puke it all out on a paper. And that's your grade. And I was like, this ain't that class.
No.
Because it's, I'm gonna get you to where you need to be. I'm gonna meet you where you are, and then, but I'm gonna get you where I need you to be, where I expect you to be by the end of the year. It may be painful at times, and you may not like me, but hopefully when we walk out that door at the end of the year, we respect each other, and we both learned something from each other. And that's another amazing thing about this class is all my classes. I learn a bunch of things from my kids as well. I didn't grow up with computers. I learned what I had to learn to get through, well, not even college the first time. I can remember paying somebody to type my senior papers when I was at AUM the first time.
Yeah.
I had to type a lady to type type up a 50-page paper for me. And this was typing, not word processor. Because, home computers were still in the infancy at that stage.
And they weren't that good then.
No, we had teachers who would just flat out forbid you from turning in a paper that was printed on a dot matrix printer, if you remember.
Right.
I mean, nobody even knows what those are anymore. So
everybody from Gen X remembers dot matrix.
Oh, and you're talking about those printers. We were talking earlier about the laser printing. I use laser engraving.
Mm-hmm.
When I try to describe to somebody what it looks like, it's like a dot matrix printer.
They go,
and they go, "What's a dot matrix printer?"
That's that robot from Spaceballs, right? No, but you said something that profound just a little like 2 paragraphs ago. You said you meet kids where they are and you bring them to where they need to be. And I think that's where we've kind of got disconnected in society today. We have a tendency to want to meet people where they are and stay right there, even though you know that it's better over here. It's better that we push you to more than what you are now. We can get you to a different level. But they're comfortable here, and we don't want to ruffle any feathers. We don't want to hurt any feelings. We don't want we don't want anything to be hard. But meeting people where they are is the easy part. Getting them to where they need to be, that's the hard part, and that's what you're doing here.
Well, that's what, and sometimes kids don't know how much they know, because it's just they don't know how to take things from one context and apply them to another always, and that's. I try to find analogies for stuff like that with them, but it always boggles my mind. And nothing against any of the other schools, because they're all doing what they have to do.
Right.
But when kids come to me, a lot of times they have no clue how to research anything.
Mm-hmm.
They can you ask them to find you a funny cat meme, and they can find it in half a second. They'll have, I'm like, hey, that's a good one, because I do love a cat meme. But,
same.
But they will. You ask them, how to write a line of code to make a robot do a certain thing, or you ask them to figure out how to, I don't know, how levers work, or figure out mechanical advantage, or do a little research on applying those things, and they don't know where to start. They're like, well, I searched for so-and-so.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, maybe you're not, think about all the terms that you might need to include in that search, and let's expand that a little bit, and it gets there.
Well, now they can just go ask ChatGPT.
Yeah. I'm not going to guarantee you that those answers will be right, but I, and I think, and I actually had an email from it wasn't actually one of my students, but I knew him from our church youth group, and he knew that I was teaching engineering. Send me an email. He's graduating from Auburn this year. Not if you happen to listen to this, valedictorian of class of 2019, sent me an email, reached out and said, hey, at the Technology Center, I don't know who all to send this to, but it's important that kids start learning artificial intelligence now. And I'm like, it's funny you say that, because I've talked about it and we've done some basic things with it in my upper level classes. And that is something that, as an education system, we need to get on the front side of. We don't need to react, and we're already a little bit behind, but there's a right way to use that stuff and a wrong way to use that stuff. And
some would call it the next phase of our evolution. Others would call it the downfall of society.
Yeah, and it could go either way.
It could be it's really the biggest double-edged sword we've ever come up upon.
And that's why I think it's important that students learn what it can do and what it can't do, and but I use it we were joking around with it in one of my classes, because I get asked to write a lot of reference letters, recommendation letters and stuff, and they were saying, oh, he can't really write a letter. And I was like, let's see. And so, I picked out Gabe Rice. He was one of my seniors who just graduated. I said, Gabe, tell me what school you're applying to, or what, I know you want me to write this letter. So he and Gabe will be attending UAH for mechanical engineering. I was like, let's just get it to write you a recommendation letter. And I said, all right, let's write a letter for a male senior named Gabe Rice, who is going to major in mechanical engineering and is applying for a STEM scholarship. He participated on the archery team and robotics team, listed a couple other things. Hit enter, and they're like, oh, it's going to take forever. Like 5 seconds later, it just starts spewing out across the screen. And it was a pretty good recommendation letter. I mean, but the thing that they noticed was it would just kind of make up some facts and plug in there. And I think you've seen that here in the news where, somebody wrote a lawyer used ChatGPT to write a legal brief, and it just made up some case law that didn't exist. And the lawyer was stupid enough to give that to a judge. And the judge was like, this doesn't exist. And so, there's...
It's only as good as information is fed, right? Right. And it can help you figure out. But I'll tell you, I use it whenever I have to write, because in my old age, it takes me a lot longer to write than it used to. I'll say, all right, what are some topics that, we did it for another young man because he was already done with his AP exams and everything. I said, what have you got to write a paper for in AP Lit? Or give me an AP Lit exam sample question. He said, what are 5 themes in, let's say Lord of the Rings? It wasn't. It was like something way more intellectual than that, I guess. But
wait a minute.
Time out.
Come on.
Cooper.
I know my wife. I said that to make my wife mad, honestly, because
you just got the hackles up on everybody in this room.
No, I'm a big old geek. You can trust me. My wife just has a particular affinity for the Lord of the Rings
Hobbit
movies.
culture.
Don't talk about the Hobbit movie to her, but my stepdaughter Audrey and some of her friends were at the house, and they sat down, and you can't just watch the regular theatrical edition. You've got to watch the extended director's cut, and so basically over 2 days they spent 14 hours watching 3 movies, and they didn't necessarily understand why I didn't want to be in the den watching Lord of the Rings again for probably the 10th time with them. So, but
I'm all about the cartoon version anyway, from the 70s.
Yeah,
that was a highly underrated movie right there. But we said, what are some themes that need to be discussed in that? And it listed the first 4 things it said. I mean, they were like, yeah, that's what I guess Mr. Forrester said we needed to put in there. And then it kept going. That'd been good. But it didn't, it didn't explain them all. It just listed the topics. So what I'll do is I'll use it to help with brainstorming. I'll use it to help write an outline. But if you read very much of it, you can pick up on the cadence and the syntax, and it becomes easy to spot what it's written.
Yeah, I may or may not know somebody that's used it to write commercial scripts.
Oh, I would.
No. It's not a bad idea. But just if you've seen Terminator 2, you know how this goes.
Yeah.
So
I love that meme where it's John Connor looking at you. It's like it's like everybody using AI, and then they show the picture of John Connor just looking at you with a mean mug.
Skynet's going to get us all one day this way, and I for one will not stand for it. I will stop feeding information to AI.
I used it one time just to see what it would come up with. We use a curriculum for engineering called Project Lead the Way. It's a nationwide, actually worldwide at this point, engineering curriculum. It's very well respected, but it's very closed. They close off access to it. It's hard to get to all the facts and details. And I said, all right, write me a lesson plan for 5 class days, 1 hour class periods on activity 3.2 in Introduction to Engineering Design, and it spewed out. It was a 15-page lesson plan. I can't turn that in. I can't. I mean, but it was incredibly detailed, and it brought up some points about some things that I didn't necessarily think about that needed to be touched on. But yeah, if I would have turned in that when I turned in my weekly lesson plans, they would have. I would have gotten a big TLDR, too long didn't read, comment back or something. So.
Well, part of your lesson plans include robotics, and you have created a state championship level.
Oh, I don't know.
Robotics
We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
We're ranking second and third in some of these competitions and winning some of these robotics competitions across the state. Talk about Vex Robotics and what you do with that here.
All right. So Vex Robotics is unique. It for us in the age group that we're all in here, we would think of it as a glorified erector set, but it's got a computer brain, and you get motors, servos, sensors, all the things to make it do different things. And each year there's a game. That's what all the competitions are about. This last year, it was basically a modified version of Frisbee golf, where the robots had the discs were laid out on the floor. There were 2 Frisbee golf goals on either corner, one red, one blue, and your robot had to, depending on which alliance you were on, red or blue, you had to pick up those discs and shoot them into the goal. If you missed, however, you get 3 points for making them in the goal. If they miss and fall into the area below, that's 1 point for the other team. So, and then at the end, and this was the kind of crazy part about it, it allowed for, normally there's a very definite area that robots have to fit in. It changes a little bit. But this year, in the last 10 seconds, your robot could expand. And for every one of the tiles on the robotics field, is 12 by 12 field, every tile that it controlled or touched, you got a point for. And so that's where it got insane, because all these teams rigged up basically air cannons to shoot out yarn with weights at the end of it and expand so that it would cover all the squares. Like one of our teams, well, actually all of our teams by the end, had these launchers that would launch out 4 or 5 strings. They put a big old weighted nut, off the pneumatics kit on there, and it would shoot out, and if that thing hit you in the leg, it hurt. But if it went outside the field, you get disqualified. So you got to
control that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
That was a little crazy. There's been a lot of years where you have to shoot things, like rig up, like hit targets with little balls. Next year, I haven't sat down and figured out all the wheres and whys and all that, but at the end, basically you got robots that have to climb a pole in the last 15-20 seconds, and the scoring depends on how far up the pole all these robots get. So you can't have any part of your robot touching the ground, but it takes about a piece of 1 inch and a half PVC, and your robot has to ascend that thing, and it's interesting. But basically, again, going back to the Stockmans, I had 3 students who came up to me, Carter and Cleveland Stockman and Zach Deal. Zach's mom was an accounting professor at AUM, and then anyway, both Stockmans were in education, and so again, it was one of those, hey, get that phone call from Mrs. Stockman and Dr. Deal. you thought about starting a robotics program? And this is the beginning of my second year teaching, but I didn't get hired up here until, you know how I didn't get hired at the intermediate school until 2 weeks into the year. I didn't get officially hired up here until the day before school started.
No time like the present, right?
Yeah. And so I'm got 2 of the classes that I teach, got the training completed for those, or kind of completed for those. And I'm like, I don't know. They're like, well, we'll keep it small. And I'm like, I got the equipment, but I don't know anything about this. And it started from there. And that first year was pretty brutal, and we learned a lot.
And that was 19, first year for robotics competition.
No, that was 17. Like we did. There is not a trophy over there from 2017. I can promise you. But I let them talk me into it. And so you go to different tournaments. It's different than a lot of the other robotics competitions that are set up for this age. Some of them are one and done. You go one time, and that's it. The unique thing about VEX is it goes from really October to February, and so you've got time to get better as you go. But I let them talk me into going to Birmingham on a Saturday for a competition, and we'd paid our money, we entered, we all drive up there on Saturday. Well, they had decided, and we only met after school. It was an after school program, 2 hours a week, and we're competing against folks that this is a class for, and they're working on them every day. And they had decided the Monday before that they didn't like their design, and we're going to start over. And we took a robot to Birmingham that did not move. It did not move all day long.
Wah, wah, wah.
And so we had
humble beginnings.
We had
stationary robotics is a new field.
Stationary robotics.
We had what I like to call a personal growth agreement conference. Some people call them come to Jesus meetings. But
I like that name.
We are never going to do that again. Like, we've got enough equipment from now on. If we're coming up on a competition, you want to change something, you just build a new robot. You're not touching that one anymore.
Yeah.
You're not taking that one apart until the new one's done and tested.
Yeah, and don't break the one that's working.
Yeah, we got a workable model right here.
And we didn't have our own field to practice on. We had like one little game piece that we could practice with. And then the next year, we had some donors chip in, and we bought a field. And that's when we started getting the odd award here and there. We started off, we got a judge's award, which is it's kind of like the sportsmanship.
I was about to say, is it a participation trophy?
It's not
it's
quite that.
Ribbon.
It's like you tried really hard. And that was
Bless your heart award.
Yeah. But I mean, we had a robot that performed, but it was the fact that I think when we got that, it was the fact that only 2 of the people on the team could be there that day, and they were nonstop all day long. And I think the judges just were impressed with what they were able to accomplish during the day, and they both really did a good job. It's not just about what your robot does. You're paired with other schools. In the morning in these competitions, it's random, allegedly. I got to throw that in there, of who you're paired with in the qualification matches. And then based on how you finish that 4, 5, 6 matches, however many that goes, then you go into the elimination matches in the afternoon, and that is you pick your partner. It goes from being nice, everybody's helping everybody, we're all one big happy family, till when they go into elimination selections for your alliance, that's when it's like playground kickball.
Yeah.
And it's like
it's cutthroat time.
Yeah. So number 1 team gets first pick all the way down, and then there's rules about if you turn down a team that offers you an alliance, nobody else can pick you, and it's
a lot of strategy
it gets a little cutthroat.
So you're saying early on y'all were the last kids to get picked on dodgeball?
Many times, which is kind of never mind.
But I mean, that's all. That's all part of the growth experience.
It
That's
is
not the case here in 2023.
Yeah. Well, remember we had 4 teams. We're going to have 6 teams next year, so the program's still growing. But we went from that 1 team to having 3 or 4 teams. And when I call it a team, we like to keep 3 to 4 people on a team. That way everybody's got a job and a role, and don't have folks just sitting around doing nothing.
But you got a stack of trophies over there that says we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, we are. I'm excited, really excited about where the program is going, but that also means I got to be really excited about fundraising and going out and soliciting donations.
That's correct, because you are competing against programs that operate at 5 times level of funding that you receive.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge that every program here faces, but I think it really shows up in areas like robotics, where you really need funds to make it work.
Yeah, that apparently, and it's our state as a whole is kind of lagging behind in robotics education. Apparently, Mrs. Calhoun, who taught with me at the intermediate school but teaches here now as well, teaches business software applications, was at the technology conference, education technology conference up in Huntsville this week, and she said there was someone there doing a presentation about how far behind the state of Alabama is as a whole on number of robotics teams.
Yeah.
And it's true, but it's a big jump. So, it costs, say, an average of $150 to register a robotics team, and then it jumps up. Then you got to pay $65-$70 per team per tournament, and then if you go to state, then it's $250 a team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to if you get lucky, we had one team that was 22 points away from going to the world championships that were in Dallas, Texas this year. Then it's, I think, $1,250 to enter your team, plus all the travel expenses, plus they get captive audience in there. You got your $9 bottle of water and $15 hot dog.
We really sound like the Rocket Boys, don't we?
Yeah, a little Huntsville action.
The movie October Sky, the Rocket Boys, the book.
Phenomenal movie.
I mean, we're that's almost the level we're on. We're having to beg pardon so these kids can get on a bus and go to a competition.
It is, and look, I'm very blessed that, because of the parent support that we've had for that program and the willingness of the community, I don't ask for stuff if I don't need it.
Right.
And so I think I've built a level of trust, and it's the same way with the archery team. Folks know when I come to them that it's a genuine ask and not just something that I need to, because I want new T-shirts or something. But and the funny thing is, they all I'm like, you want me to call somebody and get a picture in the paper? Like, no, we don't want everybody coming to ask us. Just, we're here when you need us. And so next year I just have to amp that up a little bit more. But
and I don't think that gets brought up enough. Is the people that, just like what you said, that they're like, hey, look, well, they'll give, but they don't want any advertisement or anybody. They're just trying to help.
Don't need a banner in the gym.
Don't need a banner. Don't need a logo on the building or anything.
And thank God for them, or we'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yes,
a lot of trouble.
And we're not talking about, we're just in this program. We're talking across the board.
Across the board in every situation. And that, you hit on something else. You said you had no interest in coaching, and here you are coaching archery.
Yeah.
Life's funny, isn't it?
Well, again, that kind of goes back to the Stockmans. But no, my son got involved.
All roads lead back to the Stockmans.
Yeah, no, this has more to do with my son. When my son got involved at Prattville Junior High with the archery program, and loved it, had a good time, had the potential to be really good. He was a really good archer, is a really good archer. But when he came up here, Mr. Stockman had gone, who started the program at the junior high, then moved up here. Then when he became an assistant principal out at Pine Level, there was no archery coach. So Miss Gornto at first, and I headed up the archery team. And then when Miss Gornto retired, Miss Calhoun kind of stepped in because her daughter Riley was involved. But I've loved that program. A lot of people don't even know we have an archery team, just like a lot of people don't know we have an engineering program. But that is a very solid group of kids, and that's a group of kids. I've got 4 or 5 of them that are probably involved in other team sports, but it's a chance for a lot of young folks who would not have that opportunity to be involved on a team to get involved, and it's something you can practice at if you're dedicated to it and put in the practice time. If you've got the analytical skills,
you can be pretty dang good.
But I don't have none of my kids on the team hunt. They're not like, I don't have what you would think of as kids on the archery.
Well, what was probably my best student I had in the program, the broadcast media program up here that I got going. One of the best students that I've had through the program was on your archery team, Grace Rupinen.
Yeah, Grace was
amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
Was a heck of an archer. And the things that I look for when we have tryouts, and I'm honest with the kids about this for archery. I want archery skill helps, but that's about the third thing down the list that we look for. First thing, if you come to tryouts, you're giving us permission to check your grades. And if you have anything below a C, because we're not a high school athletic association sport, even though there's 7,000 kids across the state of Alabama that compete in this program. I guess I don't want to make anybody mad.
So you're saying it should be?
No.
Or do you rather keep it like this?
I'd rather keep it like it is.
Yeah.
Just because there's less red tape.
Bingo.
And don't take this the wrong way.
Yes. Hey, the HSA has its place.
They have not figured out a way to make money off of it.
Yep.
Bingo.
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 And I don't want to hurt it, but they're good at what they do. We are in a program called the National Archery in the Schools program, and we compete. We go. This year we finished 6th in the state. I was a little disappointed. I really think we had the potential to finish in the little bit higher, a couple of places higher than that. But we typically do well enough to qualify for the national tournament up in Louisville every year, and we go there. And but it's a sport where I kind of look for the same things that I look for in students in my classroom. You got to have analytical skills. You got to be able to be objective about what you did wrong, and just Coach Hawkins at the junior high does a phenomenal job getting these kids ready. And then every year, they go from the junior high where there's extracurricular activities, but not at the level that there is at Prattville High School.
Sure.
And so you have kids that, I'd say we lose half the kids from the junior high. Probably, I imagine it's equivalent to what drop off the football team or the other sports when they come up there.
They find their niche.
Yeah, and that's, look, we're just trying to do that for everybody. But it's funny. I've had kids on that team that have never picked up a bow. Jace Hawkins and Ainsley Sternberg both started on the team last year, and they finished as 2 of my top archers this last year. I mean, at some point a switch just clicked, and Jace, bless him, man, his first tournament was at the junior high last year, and so in archery, a perfect score like bowling, 300 points, and so. My goal is for everybody on the team to be at least at 270, and then if I can get 6 or 7 kids up in the 280s, and luckily, I had a kid shooting in the 290s this year. If you'll listen to me, I can get you to 270. The difference between a 270 and a 290 shooter is thinking and paying attention to what you're doing. But so a perfect score in each round is a 50, and Jace's first round at 10 meters at the junior high, the first tournament he'd ever been in, dude's like 6'3", and he was sitting there shooting with some kid in elementary school, because you're at the same tournament, but you're not competing against each other. It's just wherever everybody can get plugged in onto a target and at a time. And so, as you can imagine, a fourth grade archer is probably not as accurate, and you tend to, you're focusing. But, Jace had been a 250 shooter, and he showed up at that first tournament, and he shot a 50 in that first round. And it wasn't just a 50. It was I just walked up to the target when he was scoring it, and I might have muttered something inappropriate under my breath, but I was like, dang, Jace, that's like the 50th 50 I've ever seen. I mean, you got 2 10 rings. You got a slightly larger one, and then you got a small X ring. They were all 5 in that X ring. I'm like, you've been sandbagging me. I mean, you have done this before. No, sir. No, sir. And so, anyway, and he was one of my engineering students too. But just a great.
You never can underestimate natural ability. You just can't. I mean, it could come out of nowhere on anything.
Yeah. So, but no, I love that program. The only downside to archery is that it's at the archery season and the robotics season overlap. So, pretty much January and February and March, my wife just kind of writes me off a little bit and
see you soon.
Yeah. That's about what it is.
We talked about all the hardware stuff, the robotics, the archery, all these things, but there's a software side of this we hadn't hit on yet. And like you said before we came online, you in this building, for a lot of these kids, it's their first introduction to actual coding. And you have a video game design component here.
We have it. I don't teach video game design, and we had. So as part of our curriculum, we have to be part of a career technical service organization, or basically it's our club. And it's for us, that's Technology Student Association. And every year we have a state conference where we have all these competitions. And that was in Montgomery this year. And I had 2 students, brother and sister, Aniran and Cindy Rockwell. And they said, hey, we want to do video game design. I'm like, I don't teach video game design, but if you want to do it. But I mean, this is all, they get ready for all this stuff outside of class. This is on their own, these competitions. And the way I get folks in, and that's another reason I started robotics, is we're mandated to be a part of this, and we're mandated from the state that we have to attend these state competitions. They don't give us any money to attend those.
But you got to go.
But we got to go. And luckily, the last few years it's been in Montgomery. But I tell the robotics kids, if they want to go to, there's a VEX robotics component of that. If you want to go and compete in VEX, you have to compete in another event. And so that kind of keeps them occupied for the 2 days that we're there. And so, Aniran and Cindy came in second place in the state, and again with no instruction from me. This is them. I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. They would ask me questions about, what do I need to do here? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know anything about creating a video game. I know how to play video games. You bust out Galaga and we'll go.
Right.
But
right.
This no.
Space Invaders, Defender.
Yeah. And so it's on them. They did it, and they finished second in the state. And,
wow.
They want to do it again next year. They want to start in September instead of February next time. But
there's so many gamers around now. I mean, but nobody really. There's only a few of those gamers that actually care about how is this game made? What's the code involved here?
Well, a lot of folks, I'll get a lot of students who come in. First, I get a lot of ninth grade boys in particular who come in and want to be engineers. And then about 3 months, or about 4 weeks into it, they're like, this is all math and science. They want to be engineers because engineers make a lot of money. This is all math and science.
Don't believe that fully.
Yeah, this is all math and science. I don't like math and science. Like, remember that second day of class after we handed in all the paperwork and we talked about the definition of engineering? Right. Yeah. And I'm like, well, applying mathematic and scientific principles to solve real-world problems, right? And they're like, yeah, but I didn't think you meant it. I didn't come up with a definition.
You came up with the definition of engineering all in this room. It was not thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Just because I gave it to you and told you to write it in your notes doesn't mean that I came up with it.
It's a direct quote from Mr. John Cooper. Now that's fantastic. It just tells you about the kind of talent that exists in this county.
And I've brought this up to Mr. Cooper before, and I'm gonna bring it up again because I'm hoping by the time my son gets to be the age where he can get up here, there's a BattleBots robotics program, because my kid is obsessed with BattleBots.
Well, the way VEX is going, when we first started that first year, it's like there was no contact between robots at all. And then I can't remember if it was the second or third year, they came up with this game where there were multiple ways to score, but at the end, they always have this thing to keep it exciting till the end, or interesting until the end, where you had to climb up. You had a red platform, a blue platform, and then there was a yellow platform.
Oh, King of the Hill.
Yeah, it was King of the Hill, and if you got the most points if you were on top. Yeah. But no part of your robot could be touching the floor, that kind of thing. And it was like a demolition derby out there. And I'm like, y'all know how much these robotics kits cost? And I've since had to, I was like, as long as the refs, you do what you got to do, as long as it's within the rules. But if you get warned and you do it again, you're done. You won't be driving that robot again. And so, but it's by the time he gets here, so he's
going into the second grade this year, so.
Yeah, by the time he gets here,
I mean, he'll
probably be driving a robot.
And I think that'll probably be my last year teaching. I think that. So, send him on. We'll do it. We can't have razor blades or flames or anything like that.
So you're telling me you can't have a spinning mechanism that will hit a 250-pound robot and send it 30 feet in the air?
By that time, who knows?
Because it's going to be more expensive.
Because it's all about.
Because I admit it, I'm a fan. It's amazing to watch what those and how.
It's all about, as long as you got the money.
People think they just wheel these. I mean, the amount of work they put into them. It's the same basic concept of what you're doing here is creating a robotics to where it can independently do these things without you having a physical wire sending it information on how to do it.
And we better figure it out now before AI starts generating their own robots.
If AI starts making BattleBots, we're in trouble.
Yeah, that's when it gets ugly.
Because I can tell you right now, I don't want to come up on a witch doctor.
No.
There is one of the robotics competition programs called First Robotics, and it's big in the Midwest. But all those teams have full-blown machine shops. It's still not BattleBots, but it's of that. They're like the minor leagues getting ready.
Well, several of the BattleBots teams are like engineering school students, and they'll have a teacher that the top ones are still almost like professionals at this, but then there's these secondary level of teams that compete that like. CIT has a team, I think out there. MIT has a team. They all, and so it's that shows you it's just not just going into your garage and putting wheels on something with a big spinner and go attack. It's detailed.
Not turning a lawnmower upside down.
Right. Yeah, it's not your lawnmower, definitely like that. And what's awesome about it is actually with the BattleBots thing now, they have a Las Vegas show now.
Yeah.
And my kid is determined to go to Vegas to the show, so this might be my chance to actually go to Vegas. I can actually sell this one. Hey, the kid wants to go.
You got a purpose in Vegas. Yeah.
Well, I'll be like Griswold, here, go run off to the blackjack table and then.
That's another cool thing about the VEX. I didn't think about it till you said that about different colleges having BattleBots team, but VEX actually goes from. I mean, it starts pre-K. But the competition part of it starts in 4th grade. They've got elementary, middle school, high school divisions, but then there's also what they call Vex University. And so, like, Auburn has a team. Carter Stockman's on that. Clemson, Florida, most of your SEC schools are involved. Texas A&M's got a good team. So it's something that carries on through to that. But and the rules change as you go up. But like at the university level, they can manufacture all their own parts. They don't. We have a set number of motors we can use. They can use however many they want. It's pretty amazing to watch some of those. But
yeah.
But there's no telling. There keeps being more contact and everything.
And of course, I was I kind of joke about BattleBots and everything. But in all seriousness aside, there's an 8-year-old that's interested in robotics now because he saw it on TV. So it's all about getting in front of them and letting them see what you can do.
Yeah, and as folks see that, they get sucked in. The catch is they got to understand that you've got to learn how to make the robot go from point A to point B before you can have and
you don't just jump in the ring with Ali because you think you can box.
Of course, I bought him the toys where they got the little toy BattleBots and everything, and he, of course, tears them up within like 15, 20 minutes because he when he fights, he fights.
Yeah.
But there are several times where he has learned how to fix it himself. I don't do it. I step back, and I've purposely done this. I was like, okay, this is how I learned how to fix stuff. You want it to work? Figure it out. And of course, there, at points I have to help them, but
tinkering.
Where he's in there tinkering and figuring out how that works, and that's to me where it's worth the investment in doing that. Sometimes my wife will say, "Man, he just tears them up in like 10 or 15 minutes." But he learns. But he learns. He's learning.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Well, and I have folks come up and say, "Oh, that's great. You're teaching them how to play a game." Well, we're teaching them a lot more than that. You get in the team dynamic, and you're going out and scouting other teams and figuring that stuff out. But you're also that fits into one of the classes I teach, computer integrated manufacturing. At the end of the year, their final project takes basically the last 9 weeks of school. They have to build a small scale factory out of robotics components. You see, you can't see them because of all the shelves in the way, but there's several smaller robotic arms that are basically miniature FANUC arms like you would see at Hyundai or any manufacturing facility. And they've got to work all those together. So you start at the beginning, push a button, and the whole factory runs autonomously. And so
that's amazing.
And they get to pick what they're going to make. I've had folks do everything from, I think this last year they were trying to do a palletizing gift package, like inserting things into packaging sort of thing. Last year they made a sandwich factory. I think year before that.
That's a great idea.
Year before that they tried to do a s'more factory because those robotic arms, one of the ends on them, it's got a laser engraving end effector for the robotic arm. And so
awesome.
They were trying to do a s'more factory.
Yeah, I like this practical application stuff.
It's high level problem solving, and that's what you sorely missing in society right now.
That's all engineering is.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a master's degree from civil engineering from Auburn University, and all it really means is you know how to solve problems and think through things and think critically and use problem solving skills and logic to get to a certain end.
And no offense to regular school, the technology center here is so vitally important.
Oh man, yeah.
Because
can't replace it.
There's more that goes on here directly impacts the kids that are here into the workforce. I mean, they learn what they have to learn at school, but in the technology center, they learn the skill that they'll need to do the job that they want to do. Yeah. And that got lost for years. I mean, that particular aspect of it got lost for years. And then we're in a situation now where there's not enough skilled laborers to take care of the workforce right now.
That's right.
Well, and I mean, I don't know if the camera's picking them up, but you can see those are the certifications that my students earned this year. That's for, most of them are for Autodesk Fusion 360. There's 3 students who got certified in Revit, which is architectural software. And they had the chance to get that in my civil engineering and architecture class.
Autodesk is amazing skill to have. I mean, coming out of school, in your first job as an engineer, you have to just pick it up on the fly.
Well, and when you get to college, they just kind of show up. I mean, when you show up, they expect you to have been exposed to it at least. And I've had some of my students come back and tell me horror stories that, the first day of class in some of their classes, Riley Calhoun came back and told me this year that one of her classes, she's in civil engineering. She walked in and the teacher said, all right, who knows much or who's certified, got any kind of certification in Excel? And about a third of the class raised their hand. Riley raised hers. All right, who has ever used Fusion 360 or Inventor or gotten any certifications in those? And it dropped down to about 3 people. Riley held her hand up. And then, or whoever's used, how many people have actually used Revit before? And Riley was the only student. And I mean, this is one of those big classes that's got 150 people in it, and it was her who could say yes to all 3. And that between my class and Miss Calhoun's class, she'd gotten those, and she'd gotten the piece of paper to say, yeah, I've got that. I know, that's the certified user credential. That means you're competent, you've been exposed to it, and you know the basics of how to work it.
And the real world salary value that adds is immense. I mean, you basically almost add an extra
You need less
zero.
babysitting.
You basically add an extra 0 to your salary.
Right, and every program down here offers some kind of certification. Like I said, Ms. Calhoun offers certifications in Excel, Word, PowerPoint. If I still lived in a typewriter world when I graduated, but I urge all my kids to take that class just for the sheer fact, can you imagine getting to college and not having to spend every spare minute doing all that little twiddly formatting stuff and just being able to spend the time writing and just knowing how to do those things? That welding has multiple certifications. Automotive, they can get some of the basic ASE certifications. Nursing offers, I'm talking a little bit out of school, but patient care technician, PCT, and like a nursing assistant certification. Some of those students get both of those, and all the way up the line. And so that's marketable skills that kids can walk out of high school with. I would love to see us have a viable electrical program, and I feel like there's community support from that to help that get going. It's just fun.
When we did the tour, it's very rudimentary, basic program here. I mean, it's a program to get introduction, but it's just, you could visually, I mean, you look at a panel in there. I don't know how much it's changed. This was 2 years ago when we did it. It's a panel that, when I was working at International Paper Manufacturing over in Selma back in the late 90s, it's the same stuff. I mean, it's the same components. And I'm like, this stuff's 25, 30 years behind here.
Right.
And that's what you're using to teach with.
Yeah. And right now we don't have an electrical program at all.
I know it was I mean, we basically, when we were going through, Mr. Cooper did it. We came to, we were during the pandemic, we came through and made basically a video for each class, like, a little, so they could post and say, hey, this is what each class offers and everything, because they weren't able to let people come in at the time. So we had to have a student do that because there was no teacher for it. And a student was just telling just a little bit what they got to do with it. So it's it's once again, it's just one of those things that we're totally lacking in, that needs to be on the forefront of what we're doing.
There's no question.
I have a friend. He's now the I guess CTE director for Pike Road Schools. Rick Robinson used to teach at the Impact in Montgomery, their version of the technology center, and he did part of the electrical program over there. He had a young man graduate, and he had kind of co-opted a little bit, interned with Dixie Electric, not Dixie, one of the co-ops down south of Montgomery there. And he walked out of high school with a lineman apprentice job paying $65,000 a year as an 18-year-old young man.
That's a good way. That's a good start on life.
And you talk about that, and like the welding program. Do you know what I mean? People can walk straight out of high school and make six figures with the right welding certifications.
Right.
Right out of high school.
And we get them headed that direction. And as important as having those certifications is, sometimes it's one thing I think that's really valuable down here is helping kids figure out what they do and what they don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like we were talking about ninth grade boys, I lose a chunk of those between the first year program and the second year program because they figure out that it's not what they thought it was, and it's hard work. I mean, it's demanding.
It's a grind.
And
but
so,
you got to stay in it. It's rewarding.
Yeah, and so, you know, and then you also get into figuring out multiple electives and everything else. But sometimes, you know, I've had kids leave my program, or they'll take my program and health science. They may not be in a sport or in band or anything like that, so they've got multiple electives they can play with. And you know, I've helped a lot of kids get going in that field. Some of them, you know, Jonathan Buckner, my student of the year this year, who graduated, he took my class. He took welding because he wanted that experience. He wanted to know all that stuff. And a lot of folks go into welding thinking, oh, welders make bank, you know, and then they're like, oh, this is a lot of work.
There's a reason why.
I got to sweat and get dirty. And,
all the time, all day.
I can't wear my fancy little AFTCO shorts or whatever. You know, I
can't wear my little shorty shorts anymore.
Yeah.
I got to wear long pants. The last thing you want to.
Oh, you can wear them, but you won't for long.
You wear them one day.
Yeah, you won't be welding. I mean, we get, but and all the programs up here. I'm excited to see our modern manufacturing program get up and running. That's going to really help out with getting folks into some of these other programs.
And with Central Alabama Community College moving to Prattville and more integrating with the technology center, it just exponentially increases the possibilities of what you can do.
That's a great source.
It is. People don't realize that was one of the biggest gets this city has ever got, was get Central Alabama Community College to make the commitment to make that big of a school here.
Yeah.
And just by talking to their leadership, they love it so much. You're going to see it get bigger. I mean, it's going to be even bigger. They're overwhelmed at the response that they're in, what they can get out of being here. They want to double what they're doing now. I mean, they've just got here.
They call the community college system the jewel of Alabama education.
Yep.
But if that's the jewel, then CAC has got to be one of the crown jewels in that junior college program, because it's massive. You can do so much through CAC.
That and Southern Union as well. And you know, we've had several students leave here and get into the Alabama FAME program, which is it's a program for a foundation for advancing manufacturing excellence, something along those lines. Yeah. And folks can get into that, get paid, get work experience, get paid to take their school classes at Trenum or I think CAC is involved with that as well. And you know, I've had two of my students go on and get involved.
Well, the other night at the board meeting, and I was live streaming, Dr. Flynn of CAC system, you know, the president, did a presentation, basically the year-end presentation, and he threw up a picture of remember exactly, maybe 8 or 10 students. All of them just, these were all already drawing college credits. They were all in their cap and gown, but they had them pictured at CAC where they've been pulling college credits while in high school.
Mm-hmm. I used to start that in 10th grade.
Yeah. I had a young man who graduated this last year, who through CAC, his junior year, he took Calc 1 and Calc 2 as in dual enrollment. Mm-hmm. And then he was so in love with calculus, apparently, that he went and took differential equations and
linear
algebra, I think.
That's something you don't hear very much.
During the summer.
Calculus.
During the summer, I don't know that he did. He just knew he didn't want to take it at Auburn.
No, you don't. I can vouch for that.
And
you
so
don't.
That's
Get it in junior college if at all possible. Get it.
But yeah, it's and a lot of people don't know. AUM offers dual enrollment classes up here. We're working with Auburn First and CAC on dual enrollment classes. And there's so many different options open.
And we haven't even got in. It's another deep delve topic we won't get into much. But adult education here is going to expand through here as well.
Yeah. But yeah, and CAC is just a great community partner too. I mean, they're involved in the community. Brandy Mitchell, who I guess is the dean of that campus or heads up that campus, reached out to me about we want to be part of this robotics program. And I'm like, oh yeah,
nice. We want you.
And so hopefully it's going to work out. Definitely, we're trying to make it work this next year, but hopefully East Memorial will go ahead and get their sanctuary built.
Yeah, let's go, folks.
We can
get out.
We can get access to their facilities on Saturdays.
Will Reader, we're looking at you.
Yeah.
We need you to get that thing built and get out of here. No offense, but we need the space.
And speaking of Saturday, we're up here on a Saturday. I'm waiting for Mr. Vernon to walk in the door any minute with the bullhorns. He's going.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time on a Saturday in the summer. John Cooper's up here talking about everything that happens, and that's something you didn't have to do, but we're happy that you did. I do have one more question, though.
Oh, Lord.
You recently completed the Buc-ee's Grand Slam of Alabama.
I did.
And so,
had breakfast there this morning.
Having been to every Buc-ee's in the state, which Buc-ee's is the best Buc-ee's, and why is it the Auburn Buc-ee's?
I'm going to disagree. The Athens Buc-ee's, although it's pretty much laid out the same, has a car wash.
Okay. That's different.
And I was on a bus coming back from Louisville, Kentucky when we stopped there. And so I think it's slightly newer than the one in Auburn. I don't know when it opened, but I'm going to say that the car wash gives it the edge, because otherwise it's laid out just the same. My favorite Buc-ee's are all out in Texas.
Everybody's worried about AI. It's Buc-ee's that's going to
Buc-ee's is what's going to get us.
I mean, you're going to look up one day and there's going to be apartment complexes inside Buc-ee's.
So is Buc-ee's the next evolution, or is Buc-ee's also the downfall of society?
Now think about the brisket before you answer that question.
Well, I am. But I'm going to say that's why I lean toward the Texas Buc-ee's. The brisket's a whole lot better at the Texas.
Of course it is.
But no, what I'm worried about, there's a new super gas station franchise coming. I think they're fixing to open the first one down in Fairhope called Wawa.
Well, that's not new. It's just I think it's the northern.
New to us.
I think it's the northern version of Buc-ee's.
But I think it's a a smaller scale.
Yeah.
But you can still, I can go buy my 6-ton catfish fryer outside of that thing too. Though, so.
I love a Buc-ee's. The one on the way to the beach where is it? I guess Loxley almost, Robertsdale, somewhere around there.
I just hate that they built the one in Auburn when they built it, because that was my sneak way to get to the stadium.
That was everybody's sneak way in.
That's game day.
Exit 50 is where to go there.
Yeah.
Now I got to go back to Wire Road way, god dang, because I'm not going to Main Drag.
I think that's going to mess Wire Road up too, because all those people are going.
Yeah, they're going to jump off there instead of going there now.
I think you may be better off going up to going up to Bent Creek and coming back.
Heck, it may work to the point where it's maybe better to go to the main exit now because everybody else is going to go the other way.
Come down. We go down to go up.
But
well, yeah. So yeah, I was very impressed by the Buc-ee's Grand Slam.
It was a fluke, but yeah, that was more to antagonize my wonderful wife, who's very patient and let me come up here on Saturday, but yeah, because she doesn't understand my infatuation with Buc-ee's. A few years ago, I was having a procedure done on my back down in Pensacola, and I'm sitting there in pain all the way down there, and I was like, let's just go to Buc-ee's on the way. And she wouldn't go to Buc-ee's on the way, but then she felt bad for me, so on the way home, which is the same day, she's like, you don't need to be walking around Buc-ee's. I can walk around Buc-ee's, I'm fine.
I can do it.
So I made her, drove that half hour out of the way to go to Buc-ee's, and she was blown away. I'll tell you.
Well,
it's a racket, but it's good marketing.
But you can't not go if there's one on the way.
I know.
Absolutely. Well, one more thing. Rapid Word Association. They did a deep dive into your Facebook page. So, I'm gonna throw a couple words out there, and you just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay? Laney's Barbecue.
Heaven.
It is good. It is good.
No, it is.
The Selma Laney's Barbecue.
I've got to get the fried pork skin on top. Get the large. Don't mess with the ribs. Large pork sandwich. Make sure they put the pork skin on top, and it's not the one out by the hospital. It's the Mentor Avenue one.
That's right.
But they're closed for remodeling right now.
Do they still have the scrap plate? Or I think they quit doing the scrap plate.
They
The scrap plate.
They got it on Mentor.
Because I know at the time when I was working at the paper mill out there, everybody the thing was somebody would bring a scrap plate and a loaf of bread. Mm-hmm. Well, it got to the point at that time back in the 90s that so many people were buying the scrap plate they wasn't buying the actual barbecue, so they had to get rid of the scrap plate for a time.
Yeah, I can't drive through Selma unless it's like 6 o'clock in the morning driving through Selma.
Yeah.
I'll be going there. So.
All right, next word, Sri Lanka.
All right, so 2 of my students are their families from Sri Lanka, and I like Indian food. I like spicy food, and we got off on a tangent about the differences, and I bought a Sri Lankan. This is one word, but good. I'm sorry, I should have led with that. But I love cooking. That's kind of like my getaway from. We used to be hunting or golf. Can't afford either one of those now, so now it's cooking.
I can appreciate that.
And so I found the Sri Lankan cookbook, and it takes a lot of prep work, and it takes a lot of paying attention to what you're doing, which is good because I kind of shut my brain off and focus on one thing.
Imagine that, an engineer doing something like that.
Imagine.
That's the only time it happens. Like, that's something my wife and I fight about. Is I'm one of those people. I got to have something like at night to occupy part of my brain because it won't shut off. Mm-hmm. And so I got to have the TV on. It doesn't have to be on anything I want to watch. I don't care. Mm-hmm. And I've tried listening to music, and it doesn't work because I pay too much attention to the music. But I can have something mindless on TV.
Absolutely.
I'll set the TV timer, and it just.
I've gotten so bad. I've just got something on the TV and a podcast going in one ear at all times.
That would probably work for me too, because I'll be.
And I may pick up 5 sentences of the podcast, but it's
something to occupy that little.
That's the only way I can just eventually get in the recliner. Go.
That's the way most people listen to our podcast.
Yeah, I think it is. Bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces.
But Sri Lankan food, if you ever get the chance to try it. It's great. I highly recommend my commercial plug, the Spice of Life grocery store over in Montgomery on Bond Road. Has everything you'll need. Super helpful because I didn't know what half the stuff I went in there for was, and they helped me find it.
Check it out. So, well, John, thank you for your time today. This has been fantastic.
I enjoyed it.
I felt like I knew you a little bit, but now after this deep dive, man. We're like best friends now.
Now I never have to talk to him again. No. But no, I really would love y'all to come up sometime when school is in session and just kind of get a firsthand
No doubt.
point of view on what we do.
No doubt. In the new building.
Cross your
hopefully.
fingers,
Cross
yes.
your fingers as when school starts in 23.
Welcome back to Poetic Justice. I'm your host, Chip Powell. Man, it's been a long time. It's good to be back. I tell you, I've had a lot of time to do some self-reflecting, maybe even meditation. And I know that's a little beyond what y'all think I might do, but yeah, I do meditate every once in a while and seek out the nourishment that poetry can bring to oneself. So during this time, I had the opportunity to sit by the creek as I do with our poetry club here. But this time I was on my own and listening to the magical waters of Watauga Creek flowing across the rocks. I came up with this poem about my hometown of Prattville, and I hope you like it. I'll go ahead and quote it for you now. In Prattville town, where Watauga Creek does flow, stands a cotton gin mill long ago. Its gears and wheels turn with rhythmic sound as cotton fibers are spun and wound. The hum of the machine fills the air, a testament to industry and toil. While Watauga Creek flows calmly near, its waters a balm for the hard-working soul. The cotton fields stretched out beyond a sea of white in the Alabama sun, their harvest brought to the mill to be spun and transformed into cloth one by one. In Prattville town, the cotton gin mill stands as a symbol of hard work and skill. And Watauga Creek with its gentle flow reminds us of nature's constant show. So let us honor this place and time where industry and nature intertwine and celebrate the legacy that we find in Prattville, the cotton gin mill, and Watauga Creek divine. I know that's a little deep for me, and maybe the audience out there will agree, but I had a lot of time to reflect and become this person that is more calm-natured and thinks more of nature and thinks about the beauty of our town. Hopefully next week in the future we'll have our co-host back with us, joining us, Lewis Mills. I know he'll have some special poems that he's written on his own too. But I want to thank you for spending your time with me and listening, and thanks for Stacy and Will for allowing me to have this time. Thank you again. Join us next week for another exciting episode of Poetic Justice.
This is Coach Donny Burnett, and here's today's Motivational Minute. Probably one of the greatest speeches of our generation. It happened on a cold night back in 1980, Lake Placid, New York. Today's Motivational Minute comes from Herb Brooks. This was the second intermission speech, pregame speech, before the U.S. hockey team went and played the Soviet Union. Great moments are born from great opportunities. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight, one game. If we play them 10 times, they might win 9. But not tonight. Not this game. Tonight we skate with them. Tonight we stay with them, and we shut them down because we can. Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players, every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great hockey team the Soviets have. Screw them. This is your time. Now get out there and take it. And as you all know, the U.S. went on to beat the Soviet Union 5-4 with Al Michaels' great call of, "Do you believe in miracles?" And then the next night they skated against Finland and won the gold medal. This is Coach Donny Burnett, and that's today's Motivational Minute.
That'll do it for us on the Preferred Experience episode number 22. For Millzer behind the camera, for Mr. John Cooper, I'm Will Barrett saying, as always, good night, God bless, go Lions.